The biggest, most important news of the last 2 weeks is that we finished publishing mkdev dispatch issues directly on our website. So if you want to see the archive of all of the issues of our bi-weekly newsletter with all the unique essays from the co-founders and the team of mkdev that we publish only on this newsletter, as well as the best links to the best resources out there on the internet, as well as to the best resources that we created, like videos and articles, go and check out on mkdev.me/posts. And don't forget to subscribe to the newsletter itself so that you get the new issues as soon as they're released, because we have a small delay between when we publish it via the email and when we publish it on the archive on the website. Oracle's database family gets trendy AI makeover. So Oracle just released a new version of its database. They teased it last year and they just made it generally available. The version is called 23ai, and it's called AI because Oracle extended the feature set with the new features built for AI use cases. For example, it has now a bit of a vector database functionality inside, so you can use the same database for traditional use cases as well as for something to power your AI applications, which is really cool. That's something that different database vendors started building recently. So Postgres, for example, has the vector PG vector extension that also gives the vector database functionality to the Postgres. And we just published, so our head of AI, Paul Larsen, just wrote and published a new article on mkdev website about when and how to use which database. So he compares different use cases and whether for your data-driven or AI-driven application, it's better to use traditional relational database, or it's better to use purpose-built vector database, or if you can just use, for example, Postgres, which gives you features in both worlds. So it gives you relational database features as well as the vector database, and then you don't need anything extra. You can just use one database to rule them all, basically. Azure and AWS offer migration plan from VMware. So the shitstorm around Broadcom license changes for VMware continues, and cloud providers are met with a tough choice. They can either adopt the new license, or they can push customers towards using the native services of cloud providers. So for example, AWS, if you want to run virtual machines, you have EC2. On Azure, they have their own compute layer, and there is no real reason to offer to keep offering VMware. So both of these clouds, they already allow you to run your VMware workloads directly in the cloud provider's data center. So there is a VMware service on AWS, and there is similar offering from Google Cloud and Azure. But now with this license change, there is no reason for any of the big cloud providers to really keep encouraging people to use it, because in the end, the reason the services exist is for companies that have VMware on-premise and that want to migrate to the cloud, to offer them this kind of intermediate step when they migrate VMware workloads to VMware in AWS, for example, and then from there they will modernize their cloud and move to Lambda, EC2, ECS, EKS, and all the other modern ways to run without paying extra license fees for the VMware. So now both Azure and AWS basically offer these rapid migration plans to go off VMware and just use whatever the cloud provides and avoid participating in these crazy license changes. We have a whole podcast episode to be released on Friday where Leo, Pablo, and I discuss in details this license change, and we also have a separate analysis video from Pablo about Broadcom purchasing VMware and what exactly they did. So check this out as well. As for people who are stuck with VMware on AWS or Azure, it's the best time to start migrating your workloads to native cloud services. Alibaba Cloud details storage tech that's doubled its VMs per host. Alibaba Cloud is another big cloud provider. Of course, in some parts of Asia, especially in China, companies use more Alibaba Cloud than AWS or Google Cloud for obvious reasons, because it's a Chinese company, so there is a big benefit of using your local cloud provider, especially there is like a legal and all the political reasons to do so. And maybe originally this kind of cloud, especially Huawei Cloud, would be just some kind of a layers on top of OpenStack, but now, because the requirements grow, the companies that run the cloud workloads in Alibaba Cloud grow, they need to improve it more and more, make it more cost efficient, make it more scalable. And one of the recent changes in Alibaba Cloud is that they adjusted their storage technology to basically allow to run 2 times more virtual machines per physical host, which then, as you can imagine, increases the efficiency of the data centers a lot. And that's always a welcome addition. because there is more capacity for the customers, and there is also less pressure for Alibaba Cloud to expand. They can just more efficiently use the existing resources. And that's cool to see, because that's something, for example, AWS is famous for. They have this Nitro system where they offload lots of the networking and some baseline computation to separate hardware between the hosts, so that they can also run way more virtual machines per host without spending resources on like this baseline functionality. It's not exactly the same what Alibaba Cloud did, because the change they did is more focused on the storage layer, but it's the same direction, and it's cool to see all these data center innovations that cloud providers build to increase efficiency of how they configure and run their hosts, especially given that we are now in this energy crisis where data centers consume so much energy that, for example, Ireland has a big issue with keeping up with the energy demand of the data centers. So they need to find some ways to produce more energy to cover the needs of the big cloud providers. Humans now share the web equally with bots, report warns amid fears of the dead internet. There is a new report published by cybersecurity company Impreva that suggests that basically half of the internet right now is being run by the bots. So every second account that you meet on the internet is some kind of a bot, automation system, and so on. That especially applies to, for example, Twitter or X, where it's just overflown with the bots. And Elon Musk for sure tries to fix it or promises to fix it, but the issue is still there. And the issue is so huge that there is now lots of discussions around the dead internet, that basically half of the internet is just bots talking to bots, or different AI systems generating content, and then other AI systems, so automated systems consuming this content, which is a bit scary. But on the other side, that's also kind of cool, because we have so many autonomous systems that it's like this whole virtual world run by the not artificial intelligence, because not all of these bots are AI driven, but by essentially software talking to software and emulating the world, emulating the real world online. Amazon CloudFront now supports origin access control for Lambda function URL origins. So since I think more than a year now, there is a very easy way to expose Lambda functions. You don't need API gateway or anything. You can just create a Lambda function URL, and then there is like a HTTPS URL that invokes your function. And then there are different ways to protect it. But one of the most common use cases is to place this Lambda behind the CloudFront distribution. The issue till now was that there is no way to ensure that the Lambda function can only be invoked by the CloudFront distribution, something that, for example, exists for AWS S3 integration with CloudFront. But since mid-April, there is a new feature. The Amazon leverages origin access control, which is basically the same way they work with AWS S3, that allows it to ensure that only the CloudFront distribution is allowed to invoke this Lambda function, and then this direct URL is not available anymore for invocation from the outside. Spanish startups say no más to Microsoft Cloud dominance. There is a Spanish startup association that consists of more than 700 different startups, and all of them collectively filed a complaint to Spanish National Markets and Competition Commission, basically saying that Azure follows uncompetitive licensing practices to force people into the Azure. So for example, they make it harder for you to run Microsoft Windows in another cloud. So they really push it towards using Azure and offering you some better conditions when you run, like, for example, Microsoft Windows Server inside Azure, which to me makes sense, because in the end, that should be the best place to run Windows. My question would be is why they don't just try to then run on some open operating systems like Linux. Plus, I don't see what actually in general forces them to use Azure and not AWS, Google Cloud, or some smaller niche cloud providers. It seems like they want to keep using Microsoft products, but off the Microsoft Cloud, which is a nice idea, but it will always be better to run Microsoft stuff on the Microsoft Cloud in the end. And if you want to run something different, it's better to run something different from the base layer and encourage some open systems and use them to run your software. StackOverflow partners with OpenAI. There are huge news that StackOverflow partnered with OpenAI, meaning that OpenAI will get access to StackOverflow data, and in return, StackOverflow will get money from OpenAI. And there are lots of people angry about this. So people who actually posted good answers on the platform started deleting their answers on Stack Overflow because they don't want this data to be used for OpenAI purposes. And as an answer to this, Stack Overflow started banning users who deleted their own answers to prevent data from disappearing from the platform. So first of all, we discussed also this topic in details in the new episode of DevOps Accents to be released this Friday. So check this out to learn like the view, 3 different views from mkdev co-founders on this issue. But my 2 main points here is that I don't understand why people are so angry now, because 1 month ago, if you watch mknews, you know that Stack Overflow signed more or less the same deal with Google to use Stack Overflow data for Google's AI. And the second point, I don't get the point of people deleting the answers, because in the end, they posted these answers to help other people, and AI tools and different coding assistants and copilots will help people even better and faster. So it's an improved experience. And the only difference I see is because in case of AI tool helping you, AI tool will never tell you that, oh, this is information from this guy or that guy from Stack Overflow. So there is this gamification and reputation element completely disappears and is replaced by the AI machines that does not point to any references. But in the end, people publish this content voluntarily on a platform that is owned by a commercial company. So you should always assume that whichever content you post on other platforms that don't belong to you, if you post it on Instagram, on Medium, on Stack Overflow, then the content doesn't really belong to you, and platform is able to do with it anything. If you really want to own your content, buy a domain name, create a virtual server, and host WordPress and post anything you want there, then you are sure that this content belongs to you. Except that, of course, AI models will still access your website and get all the content for free, unless we will find a way to block it properly in the future. How an empty S3 bucket can make your AWS bill explode. People found a curious bug in functionality of AWS S3. So you can have an S3 bucket that has no files, and then someone could figure out the hostname of this bucket and start making requests to this bucket, even if it doesn't have any content. So request would fail for sure with the 403 error. But the trick here is that AWS still charges the bucket owner for the failed 403 requests. So you could actually find someone else's bucket and then just DDoS the bucket with unauthorized request. And the owner of the bucket will have to pay for all of these requests, which can easily be lots of money, because in the end, S3 scales pretty well, so it will not say no to all these requests. And then you have to pay the fee for all these requests. AWS already promised to look into this issue and fix it, because in the end they also realized that it cannot work this way. You should not pay for 403 requests if someone tries to attack your bucket. It makes no sense from the cloud provider's perspective to charge you for this, and they realize this and they promise to fix it in the near future. AWS improves AMI experience. So finally, there are some announcements that make life of users of AWS easier without the words Bedrock, Gen AI, Anthropic, or anything like this. So Amazon just improved Amazon Machine Image experience with 2 new additions. First of all is that it's now easy to see which AMI is being used or not, and it even works cross-account. So you can see that, okay, this AMI is used for some instances, so I should probably not delete it, which is really cool, because before you just had to guess. And the second feature is that now they have protection from deregistration of AMI, so that you can say that just don't allow to deregister this machine image, because some of your servers might use it actually, or you want to use it for new servers. So then it's like a bit like a CloudFormation stack protection or deletion protection for databases. AMIs in the end are very important if you're still using EC2 and not serverless offering from AWS. So it's really cool that in this crazy AI age where every single announcement is in AI, you cannot imagine how hard it is for us at mkdev to find the news for you that are not related to AI, because I think everyone is exhausted from AI. Even the Alex, our project manager, he wrote his essay in the latest mkdev dispatch. Don't forget to subscribe to it via the link in the description. He wrote about how it just becomes exhausting to talk about AI, which is not good or bad, but you just feel that it's really cool of this technology, but it just makes you tired at this point. GitHub Copilot Workspace. Welcome to the Copilot native developer environment. Now that I complained about all the news being AI, I have two more AI news for you. First of all, is GitHub announced GitHub Copilot Workspace, which is basically Devin. So if you remember 1 month ago, there was Devin. Of course, the hype cycle for Devin already went down and no one cares anymore. But Devin was this fully automated AI assistant, and now GitHub brings something similar called Copilot Workspaces. Previously, Copilot is something that you use inside your code editor, but now they have this kind of isolated environment where you can just give Copilot some task, and then it will try to complete it till the end, write tests, etc., etc. It's currently in preview. I was one of the lucky people who got access to Copilot Workspace. Unfortunately, 20 minutes after they gave me access, they took it back because they said, well, we gave access to too many people. We don't have capacity to to offer this new feature to that many people. So I did not manage to actually try it out. In another news, Amazon Q Developer is also now generally available, and Amazon Q Developer is similar thing. It's completely autonomous agent to write the code, write the tests, create the pull request, and so on. It was previously called something like a feature inside AWS Code Catalyst, but because now they kind of put all of this productivity tools under the Amazon Q umbrella, it's now named Amazon Q Developer, and all the features are now integrated into this part of the Amazon Q. Again, it's not something I personally tried. Please leave a comment if you want to see a separate video on about Amazon Q and whether it works well or not. We can try to create a simple, small project and see how successful Amazon Q will be. But the summary of this is that now both GitHub and Amazon offer their own versions of Devin, and for sure for Devin it will be now hard to compete with both of them because GitHub Copilot is owned by Microsoft, and Microsoft has this more or less unlimited access to GPUs and to OpenAI with the better pricing, and Amazon Q is backed by AWS, which also has more or less unlimited resources. So in terms of price and availability, it's going to be hard for something like Devin to compete with these big ones. Spotify previews Portal for Backstage as developer portal with easy setup plus premium plugins for all users. That's something I did not really expect, but now Spotify sells platform engineering software. As a reminder, Spotify created Backstage, which is like a toolkit to build developer portals. So you can create like a portal where you have the boxes to create a standard microservice that follows all the requirements for your particular organization. So you can have this easy to use way to like see all the information about the services, to provision new services, new environments, and so on. And that was an open source tool and still an open source tool. And that's one of these tools that is like one of the main tools in platform engineering topic or area, because lots of people integrate with Backstage or build on top of Backstage. And now all of a sudden Spotify announced a new service called Portal for Backstage, which is like a managed Backstage, still in beta. And most interestingly is that they announced also a new plugin. So there is like a new plugin marketplace for plugins for Backstage, and they announced a number of paid plugins. So now Spotify sells to you software for platform engineering, which is interesting because Spotify is not a company that sells software for cloud infrastructure. They're a company that sells music streaming and podcast streaming. So it's interesting how it works within the business setup of Spotify and how successful they will be with selling these offerings. I have a feeling that all of this should have stayed open source because it's really awkward to buy some developer tools from Spotify, even if they launched Backstage initially. In the end, I expect from them more tools for content creators, for podcasters, etc. But instead of, for example, improving Spotify podcasters to be competitive with Riverside that we use for our podcast DevOps accents, they started selling plugins for Backstage. Build generative AI applications with Amazon Bedrock Studio. Amazon keeps releasing more and more features and capabilities in their AI suite, primarily in Bedrock, and one of the new things they released is called Bedrock Studio, which is a visual editor to create Gen AI applications. They clearly state that it's for POCs, just to quickly configure some Gen AI application, and it easily connects with different features of Bedrock, like with agents, with knowledge base, and so on. So completely without any kind of knowledge of how to use APIs of the services, or even how they say without needing access to AWS management console. It's like a completely separate web UI. You can create GenAI applications, which is also pretty cool, because now without any experience, you can go and create new GenAI applications without coding or without connecting APIs or without messing with the management console. I did not test it yet because it's still in preview. I did not get access to the service. I probably should create a separate video about Bedrock Studio. Please leave a comment if you want to see something like this. But it's exciting to see that this kind of GenAI suits from big cloud providers become easier and easier to use, removing the need for a separate development team to at least create these POCs. And POCs are important because if you are an organization that does not have any AI products yet, one of the first things, like this day zero stage of introducing AI products, is quick experimentation and creating POCs. And that's something that is really well described by my colleague and head of AI at MKDev, Paul Larsen, in our AI strategy guide, where he walks you through all the stages of building your first AI product. And he also describes that it's really essential to get started quickly and build some proof of concepts, and how you can do it with the modern tools. And Amazon Bedrock Studio is one of these new tools that makes it even easier. TikTok becomes first platform to require watermarking of AI content. That's something really amazing, and I did not expect this to come from TikTok, but they're the first platform that actually requires content creators to mark their content created with AI or AI-generated content. I think it's really important because now AI is at this stage that is just everywhere. You can go to Twitter, for example, or X, and you can see lots of people started publishing their own text, but AI-generated images. There are also lots of Instagram influencers that do not exist. It's just AI model trained to create images of, for example, the same girl or the same guy. And for lots of people, they don't realize that it's AI generated. So TikTok is doing a very correct move to enforce watermarking of AI generated content. We should know if the content that we are watching is created by artificial intelligence or if it's something created by a human. And I hope one day it will be kind of, maybe because I'm from EU, I want this will be regulated, so it will be mandatory for all platforms and all websites to clearly state if the piece of content is AI generated or not. In the end, it will also help AI companies, because for AI training, it's important that they don't retrain on other AI-generated content, because they will just stop improving over time. They need new, unique content from humans, and not just perpetually being trained on AI content generated by AI content generated by AI content. Cloud Big Three take lion's share as market expands 21%. There is a new report coming from Synergy Research Group about that the share of three big cloud providers increased by 21%, which is a bigger increase than last year. There was like a slope in 2022 in how fast the cloud adoption grows. But now it kind of returns to the pre-2022 levels, pre-pandemic levels, and starts growing more faster and faster. So now, according to this report, the three, so AWS, Azure, and Google Cloud, they account for 67% of the whole cloud spend in the world. And for the public cloud, they account for 72%. What's interesting is that AWS is now only 31%, so it also grows, but it kind of slows down and loses some market share to other things. In particular, Azure is now, or Microsoft is 25%, and Google is now 11%. According to the researchers, we will never get back to the pre-pandemic level of growth, because pre-pandemic, the market was growing, well, it's like 35-40% every quarter, and now it grows 21%. But because the market is now so massive and now everything is controlled by the three big cloud providers, we are entering the phase where those companies that are still not on the cloud will slowly transition to the cloud, but there will be no huge explosion anymore like in the prior years. But still, especially with now with the AI adoption, with more and more AI services and every company wanting to use AI, there will be still some growth in the cloud spending and cloud adoption rates in the world. That's it for this video. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel, press the like button, share the episode with your colleagues so they also stay up to date with all the important news in the cloud, DevOps, and AI space. And also, please tell me if you're interested in a more different format of the news, where we just take one particular big piece of news, like Broadcom acquiring VMware, and making a separate video just about this particular thing with a bit more analysis of the numbers and what it means, and a bit less just quick commentary about event happening. And to compare this kind of different formats, please watch the previous video on the channel from Pablo about Broadcom acquiring VMware, where he covers the topic in depth over, I think, 10 minutes video, and talks only about this. That could be also an interesting format for us to try, but we need to know if you're more interested in this kind of quick overview of the news like I do, or if you would prefer some kind of a deeper analysis of one particular event and nothing else.
There are no challenges that we couldn't overcome. Whether it is immediate infrastructure problems or planning a future project, we won't simply answer your questions. We become a part of your team to help you complete the mission. Our solutions consider the interests of your business and the combined expertise of the industry, as our staff is made up of more than a dozen experts in different areas who share decades of field-tested experience and knowledge with you.